Prepare for a miraculous 2024. 40 days of divine confirmation and prophetic answered prayers. The air was thick with anticipation as the villagers of Pentridge gathered in the ancient church, a place where faith hung vibrant like the stained glass overhead. It was an devoted wife, loving mother, and steadfast believer who dared to proclaim, God is stirring something miraculous. Even as the ominous shadow of sickness loomed over their quaint village, and felt an undeniable call to embark on a transformative 40-day prayer journey. This was not just another new year. It was a divine appointment. With each passing day, families were gripped by a mysterious illness, leaving them distraught and scattered in their faith. The vibrant laughter that usually filled the village square was replaced by whispers of doubt. Yet, there was a flicker of hope ignited in Anne's heart. Every night, she gathered her family around the old wooden table, their faces lit by the flickering candlelight. Let us pray. Let us seek the Lord's intervention, she would proclaim. Despite the skepticism around her questions from her closest friends and even her husband, James, who worried for their children's safety and held firm. What if God wants to do something incredible? She would reply softly, her eyes glistening with tears of faith. Then, just as despair seemed most potent, the village was shaken by news of the beloved elder Thomas, who had fallen gravely ill. In that moment, something shifted. United in desperation, families rushed to the church, hands clasped together in prayers that echoed against the stone walls. The air shimmered with expectancy, as if heaven were straining to listen. They prayed fervently not only for healing but for an awakening of faith that would sweep through their community. As the sun dipped below the hills, a cloud of brightness descended upon the small group. A hush fell over them, reverberating with a sacred urgency. It was then that a miraculous event began to unfold. Elder Thomas, once unresponsive, stirred. Gasps of astonishment broke out, and tears surged in Anne's eyes as they witnessed light radiate from his skin. Could this be? She whispered. With a mighty breath, he rose, proclaiming the goodness of the Lord with a voice that softened their doubts. The village erupted in joy, a symphony of praise weaving through the night. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With this extraordinary healing, hope and belief ignited like wildfire among the villagers. Each day of prayer brought revelations. People began to share their own stories of healing, rekindled faith, and miraculous encounters, and clung to this vibrant transformation, her heart warmed by the ripple effect of their collective faith. Yet, just when it seemed they were reaching a pinnacle of belief, doubt wormed its way back in challenges they hadn't anticipated surfaced as the village faced the harsh winter ahead. Was the miraculous moment just the beginning? And found herself grappling with rising questions. Could their newfound faith endure? Could God's power sustain them? Just when it seemed the dawn of 2024 would be glittered with miracles, an unexpected challenge loomed. As Anne and her neighbors clung to hope, they braced themselves, sensing that the true test of their faith was about to unfold. With Bibles held close and hearts prepared for anything, they stood on the brink of transformation, each spirit vibrant with the question, "What's next, Lord?" The cold winds of winter swept through Pentridge, biting at the villagers' skin but not their spirits. Inside their homes, they gathered around fires, sharing warmth and stories of faith. Yet, as the nights grew longer, unease began to shadow their minds. Illness lingered like a thick fog, and with it came an unexpected weight of fear, and could feel the heaviness pressing down upon her. Each morning brought news of another family stricken, another child confined to bed, another heart faltering in faith. She understood the gravity of their situation. Despair crept in uninvited, threatening to extinguish the flickering flame of their recent revival. But something deep within her urged her to persist. to believe even more fervently. "This is our moment to shine, Lord," she whispered in prayer. "Don't let our faith falter now." One evening, as snow began to blanket the village, Anne took her children by the hand and led them back to the church. The old stone building stood resilient against the winter's chill. With each step toward the threshold, she felt a knot of anxiety loosen just a little. The warmth of the sacred space wrapped around them like a comforting embrace. Other villagers filtered in, drawn by the calling each felt in their hearts, those who had witnessed the miracle of Elder Thomas and those who had lost hope amid the shadows. "Tonight, we come not just for healing," Anne announced, her voice echoing in the chilly silence. "We come to renew our covenant with God. We will make a stand together." She felt the stirrings of the Spirit as she spoke, the excitement building in the air. They gathered in a circle, hands interlinked. A simple act, yet it resonated with divine purpose. With fervent hearts, they prayed. Anne's voice soared above the others, wrapping around each member like a blanket of faith, as they beseeched God for strength and guidance. They prayed for healing, yes, but deep down they also yearned for renewal, spiritual renewal. Would they rise, stronger than before? Would their faith be the beacon to guide them through the storm? Then, a soft light flickered, drawing their attention to the altar. A candle, long extinguished, reignited with a brilliant radiance that illuminated the church. Gasps filled the room as some rubbed their eyes in disbelief. "Look!" exclaimed a voice, trembling with wonder. The light, and turned, her heart leaping. Was this another miracle? A sign from above, perhaps? The glow grew, pulsating with an otherworldly warmth, inviting them to move closer, to feel the divine presence surrounding them. As they approached the altar, they weren't just spectators. They were participants in a celestial dance of faith. Watching their faces light up in awe, she felt tears of joy cascade down her cheeks. All those doubts began to dissolve as assurance flooded her heart. God is here. He is answering our prayers. We must trust His ways. The villagers began to sing, their voices lifting to the heavens, each note harmonizing with the newly enkindled hope in their hearts. They surrendered their doubts to God, renewing their commitment to seek Him with all they had. It was a pledge of unwavering devotion in the face of adversity. But just as their spirits soared, a chilling realization crept in: winter was only beginning. Was this fleeting spark enough to sustain them through the hardest days that lay ahead? As they faced an uncertain future, and gathered her family close, their breath visible in the frigid air, and murmured, "The journey is only starting. Will we continue to seek Him?" With hope budding anew, but questions still looming, they departed, hearts ignited but uncertain of what came next. What test would they face in the coming days? As the villagers left the church that night, the soft glow of the flickering candle in the altar lingered in their minds, a beacon of hope against the dark chill surrounding them. Each family made their way home, the cold biting at their fingers and toes, but within their hearts, a warmth ignited by unity and prayer began to spread, and held tightly to her children, feeling their small hands trembling slightly in the winter air. "We will be all right," she assured them, though she couldn't shake the nagging worry clinging to her. Her thoughts danced between hope and dread, but she pressed on, whispering words of encouragement not just to them, but to herself. The next morning greeted Pentridge with a heavy frost that sparkled like diamonds on each blade of grass. As the villagers emerged from their homes, a sense of determination stirred within them. Despite the burdens lingering like shadows, there was a shared understanding that something needed to change, and took it upon herself to organize a gathering at the church again. This time, she planned a day filled with prayer and fasting, a day to seek guidance, a day to listen. "We need to look for answers together," she declared at the small meeting in her home. "Let us seek His face, and trust that He will reveal His plans for us." As she pored over the scriptures that evening, passages began to leap off the page, resonating deeply within her spirit. "And you will seek me and find me, when you search for me with all your heart." Those words seemed to echo within the silence, amplifying her resolve. She knew they had to commit wholeheartedly to the quest ahead. That in the days that followed, Pentridge transformed into a hub of spiritual intensity. Each home became a sanctuary of prayer. Neighbors gathered under the weak sunlight, praying for each other, sharing meals filled with love and hope, and cradling stories of faith that inspired yet another wave of courage. And felt a swelling in her heart. This community was more than just bodies trapped in winter's grasp. They were warriors of faith as they moved in unity. And noticed something miraculous. The air felt lighter. The heaviness that had loomed over them began to dissipate, like fog receding before the morning sun. The laughter of children echoed as they played outside, their merriment mingling with the prayers of their parents. It was a symphony of hope playing against the backdrop of winter's chill. One particularly bright afternoon, fate was to intervene. An elderly villager named Margaret, a woman who had grown frail over the years, approached, and at the church, her eyes glistening. "And dear, I have a feeling today is different," she whispered. "I believe something miraculous is coming. God is moving among us, and we should prepare our hearts." Prepare our hearts, and murmured, sensing the weight of those words. That evening, as they gathered yet again, and felt the atmosphere change, an electric energy filled the room, tangible and divine. The group praised and prayed, their hearts intertwined in a chorus of unity. As the prayer reached a crescendo, it felt as if the very air around them thickened with anticipation. The candle at the altar flickered once more, reminding them of that brilliant night of renewal. Some stood in awe, while others felt a wave of peace wash over them. Something is coming, and thought, her heart racing. But what? As they departed with lifted spirits, murmurs of expectation filled the air. But deep in Anne's heart, a curious thought lingered. Was it merely hope, or was God preparing them for a test they had yet to comprehend? What would the coming days unveil? The morning sun broke through the frost with a golden glow, illuminating the village of Pentridge as if nature itself rejoiced in the newfound hope. The laughter of children mingled harmoniously with the melodious chirps of awakened birds, painting a vivid picture of revival. And felt the energy in the air, electric yet serene, a gentle caress that stirred her spirit. Gathering her children around the table, she prepared a simple breakfast, filled with gratitude, grateful for each moment, each shared smile. "Today is special," she said softly, brushing the hair from her daughter's face. "Today we trust in God's plan." As she spoke, memories of the gatherings weighed heavily in her mind. Deliverance came in unexpected ways, and a time of prayer had transformed not just the village but her own heart too. Her friends and neighbors were finding courage born out of faith, and she felt a unified spirit knitting them together like a warm blanket against the cold. Later that morning, the church buzzed with anticipation. Villagers filled the pews, their faces aglow with newfound hope, and stood at the front, her heart racing with a mixture of excitement and reverence. "Brothers and sisters," she began, her voice steady yet filled with emotion, "we come together today as one. We seek the face of our God, knowing that He is mighty to save us." She felt the room pulse with a collective heartbeat, a resonating echo of their shared commitment to prayer. They sang, their voices intertwining like vines, reaching upwards, unraveling their burdens in the form of melodies. The energy was palpable, swelling with every note, and saw tears glistening in the eyes of friends and family, face lit with divine joy. Margaret stood at the back, her weathered hands lifted high, whispering fervent prayers. "Lord, let your will be done," she breathed, her faith a beacon that fueled the congregation's fervor. As the prayers ascended like sweet incense, and felt a gentle wave wash over her, an overwhelming sense of peace that transcended the worry that had once gripped her. It was as though God Himself was rooting among them, stirring, confirming His presence. She had heard tales of miraculous encounters from those who had come before them, but to experience it there was no words. Suddenly, the candles flickered wildly as though responding to their supplication. Anne's heart quickened. The flame at the altar burned brighter, drawing every eye. "What is happening?" she thought, a sense of trepidation mingling with hope. Just then, a hush fell over the crowd, an unseen weight pressing gently on shoulders, urging silence. It was then that a soft but resounding voice filled the air, echoing through the church like the wind rustling through trees. "I am among you, "And I hear your prayers, prepare your hearts for the miraculous." Gasps echoed throughout the room. Fishing for understanding, and caught Margaret's gaze. Both women wide-eyed in disbelief yet filled with awe. Was this the divine moment they had sensed, the miracle Margaret spoke of? The service unfolded with renewed vigor. Prayers became declarations, and the atmosphere thickened with the expectancy of heaven breaking through. But as the gathering concluded, and felt a small knot of uncertainty form in her stomach, was this the beginning of their transformation or a precursor to a greater test of their faith? As everyone departed, their hearts abuzz with divine anticipation, yet unbidden questions lingered. What trials might arise in their path? What answers awaited them in this seemingly endless journey of faith? Little did they understand. Their journey had just begun, and soon, Pentridge would encounter a breakthrough that would challenge everything they believed. Would they be ready to embrace it? The following day dawned with a brilliance that seemed to echo the promise of yesterday, and awoke with a newfound energy pulsating through her. The whispers of the previous day's divine presence lingered in her heart. Every smile, every shared moment of prayer felt imbued with an undeniable strength. She gathered her children, the aroma of warm bread enveloping them in a sweet embrace as they sat at the table, eyes sparkling with hope. "We must hold tight to our faith," she encouraged, her voice gentle yet firm. "We are called to a purpose greater than ourselves, and God is at work." The children nodded, their innocence mirrored in the bright light spilling through the window, and felt encouraged, knowing her words were laying the foundation for the faith that would guide them through the unknown. And the days that followed, the village of Pentridge was alive with fervor. Each gathering in the small church was a testimony to a powerful awakening. Neighbors began sharing their experiences, stories of healing, reconciliation, and moments when they felt God near. The atmosphere was electric, infused with an urgency that made them feel as if they were on the cusp of something magnificent. One evening, as twilight bathed the village in a soothing glow, a council of village leaders met in the church. They sought direction amid the stirring of their hearts, and joined them, her spirit buoyed by the thought that they were at the forefront of unimaginable change. Margaret, her voice steady, recounted her vision of hope, stressing the importance of unity among the villagers. "We've seen God's hand in our midst," she proclaimed, her hands raised as if to offer the entire room an invitation. "We must step out in faith, not knowing where it will lead us, but trusting in His divine guidance." The leaders murmured their agreement, their faces a blend of trepidation and excitement, as they began to plan an upcoming revival meeting, and felt the urge to stand and share her heart. "What if we commit to prayer for 40 days? She suggested, feeling the weight of each word. "Let us seek God daily, share how He answers us, and prepare every heart for His miraculous ways." An eruptive cheer filled the space, each face lit with conviction. 40 days of divine confirmation, one elder exclaimed, his voice filled with passion. Ideas flowed like an unstoppable river as they laid the groundwork for this profound act of faith. Days transformed into weeks. The village became a tapestry of shared prayers and testimonies, an endeavor to embrace what lay ahead. Children and adults alike began recording their prayers, hopes, and fears, creating a chronicle that would document this sacred journey. But beneath the surface of their vibrant congregation, a growing tension loomed. A feeling of uncertainty began to weave through Anne's heart, much like a storm cloud poised to release its rain. She caught whispers of doubt among some villagers. Questions arose about the upcoming revival. Would God truly show up in power? One evening, as she prayed alone in her quiet kitchen, the weight of these concerns bore down on her. She closed her eyes, surrendering her fears into God's hands. "Lord," she whispered, "will you truly come among us? Will you answer our prayers?" And as if in direct response, a soft breeze slipped through the open window. It brushed against her cheek, carrying the sweet scent of blooming flowers. The warmth enveloped her, igniting a flicker of faith deep within. There was a promise in the air, a reminder that God was not finished with them yet. With a renewed spirit, Anne knew the days ahead were pivotal. The revival was on the horizon, a moment to dive deeper into God's promises. Yet, Doubts flickered like candles in the hearts of many. What will be revealed in those 40 days? Would they draw closer to him, or would doubts pull them apart? The stage was set for a dramatic encounter with the divine, and the thoughts of what was coming next filled everyone with a mix of longing and fear. What miracles awaited them, and what challenges must they face? Would they embrace the call no matter the cost? As the sun rose on the first day of their 40-day journey, and gathered her family for morning prayers, the excitement in the air was palpable. Today marks the beginning. Let us set our hearts to seek him with all that we have, she encouraged her children. Seeing their faces shining with anticipation in the village, a sense of reverence wrapped around everyone like a warm blanket. People met in small groups, sharing their hopes and prayers. It felt as if the entire community was drawing from the same wellspring of faith. Voices rose in harmony, guiding them through their commitments. Where each whispered prayer echoed like a heartbeat as they prayed together, miracles began to unfold. Old wounds of resentment among neighbors started to heal. The cafe became a place of joyful sharing, where laughter and tears mingled. People who had long avoided each other gathered, sharing stories of past grievances, now released into the light of forgiveness, and found solace in these moments, her heart swelling with gratitude. But not all was well. With every miracle, disbelief seemed to coil tighter around the hearts of some. Whispers of doubt surfaced in hushed tones, echoing in the dark corners of the village. They asked questions that turned in anxious circles. What if nothing changes? What if God doesn't respond? These murmurs were like shadows creeping through the vibrant light of their faith. One evening, and felt a lump rise in her throat as she faced her own uncertainties. She took a walk through the quiet village and ended up at the old oak tree, the one where community gatherings had taken place for generations. Leaning against its sturdy trunk, she closed her eyes and felt the bark upon her back, its age and strength grounding her. Lord, help me conquer this fear. In that moment of vulnerability, the whisper of a new yearning filled her spirit. What if we shared our fears too? She thought. Instead of hiding their doubts, what if they brought them before God and each other? Perhaps prayer meant not just seeking hope but also confronting their weaknesses. The idea sparked light in her heart. The next morning, and spoke with the village leaders. Let us not only declare our hopes but also admit our fears, she urged, her voice steady. During this journey, let us create a space to be honest. Together we can lift each other up. Some leaders exchanged glances, skeptical yet intrigued. Slowly, they began to share their own hidden fears about the revival. It was cathartic, a release of pent-up anxieties. Murmurs of agreement spread, and soon everyone gathered on the church steps, a diverse mix of villagers. As they shared testimonies not solely of triumph but of trembling uncertainty, the bond began to stretch and strengthen among them. I worry no one will come, one villager confessed. I fear my prayers will go unanswered. Another hesitated. Yet, as fear met vulnerability, hope surged through them. They felt the Holy Spirit's presence drawing them closer. The revival meeting drew nearer, and the energy shifted. Hope intertwined with fear began to feel like a sacred tapestry, a testimony not just of victory, but of the journey itself. The villagers faced what lay ahead not as perfect beings, but as real people seeking God together, and raised her eyes to the brightening sky. If God can use our fears, she whispered, a smile breaking through, imagine what he will do with our faith. But unseen challenges still loomed over the horizon. Would this vulnerability draw them closer, or would fear unravel their unity as the revival dawned? With the revival just days away, they felt the weight of the world on their shoulders, yet a flicker of hope shimmered in the depths of their hearts. The thrill of the unknown danced with uncertainty. What would happen when they gathered? Would they be met with miracles or silence? The eve of revelation drew closer, painting a horizon where everything could change, and the tension in the air thickened. It beckoned them forth, both anxious and hopeful, as they prepared to encounter the unexpected. What divine surprises still await them? As the days slipped by, the village held its breath, waiting for the revival that loomed like a shadow over their hearts. The air was thick with anticipation, Yet underlying it all was an undercurrent of doubt. Each family went about their daily lives, but conversations were tinged with a nervous energy, like static before a storm, and felt it keenly, as if the pulse of uncertainty throbbed in the core of their shared faith. The night before the gathering, Anne prepared a meal for her family, but her mind wandered. What would tomorrow bring? She yearned for change but feared disappointment. Slicing vegetables, she paused to whisper a prayer. Lord, help us to believe. Even when it feels impossible, her children entered the kitchen, wide-eyed and eager. Is it tomorrow, Mama? They asked, barely able to contain their excitement. Their innocent joy broke through her anxiety, reminding her of the faith she sought to nurture within them. Yes, my loves, she replied, forcing a smile. Tomorrow we come together to seek his face. As night fell, the village church stood in peaceful anticipation, its doors open wide, inviting all to enter. Flickering candles illuminated the faces of those who gathered. Some came with expectant hearts, while others carried the weight of fear as they slipped onto the pews, and watched as neighbors embraced, fragile smiles replacing once fractured relationships. This was no ordinary meeting. It felt like a holy convergence of spirits. The clock struck 7, and the atmosphere pulsed with a mixture of hope and trepidation. Their pastor, an ever-steadfast figure, approached the pulpit, his presence solid like the morning sun breaking through the fog. Welcome, beloveds, he said, his voice rich with love. Tonight, we lay our burdens before the cross, sharing our fears and faith alike, and felt a shiver of communion in the room. One by one, villagers stood up, their voices trembling yet resolute. I'm scared this one matter, one woman confessed, tears glistening in her eyes. I've given up so many times before, but instead of silence, a wave of encouragement washed over her. You're not alone, someone called out. A murmur of agreement rose, warming the hearts surrounding them. This vulnerability birthed strength, and doubts once shackled began to flutter away, replaced by whispered prayers of solidarity. With each testimony, the Spirit moved among them, and grasped her husband's hand tightly as a man spoke of his fears of failure at work. Another woman shared her anxiety about her children finding their path in life. They brought their fears to the altar, and as the words spilled forth, they transformed into offerings of courage. The pastor invited them to kneel in prayer, and the room hushed to a reverent whisper. Lord, cover us in your peace, he prayed, the cadence of his voice wrapping around each heart. In that sacred moment, something shifted. A sigh of relief echoed through the church as burdens were lifted, faith began to rekindle, and their companionship deepened, and closed her eyes, felt the warmth of the prayers sound like a gentle rain. God, please ignite the fire within us, she whispered, sensing the shift in their community as they rose. A new light flickered in their eyes. Possibilities danced like golden leaves in the wind. They stood together, hearts united, feeling like a family drawn closer in faith. But beneath this beautiful revival, a disquiet lingered, as if an unseen force watched and waited. Would they withstand the storm that might follow? The dawn of awakening felt near, yet the storm was never far behind. Would their bonds of faith hold strong, or would challenges scatter them once more? Tomorrow would tell the tale, the day they collectively stepped into the unknown joyfully. With hearts prepared, they turned to face the horizon of hope. What awaited them as the sun rose on this promised day? The morning dawned with a soft glow that flooded the village, illuminating rooftops with a warmth that felt almost ethereal. And, awakening before her children, stood at the window, her heart a mix of trepidation and hope. The words of the pastor from the night before echoed in her mind. We lay our burdens before the cross. As the sun rose higher, she woke each child with kisses and gentle whispers. It's a special day today, she said, their sleepy faces lighting up with expectation. She could feel the excitement crackling in the air, like the first hints of a wildfire beginning to catch. The village stirred to life, people emerging from their homes, eyes bright, spirits high, and dressed her children in their brightest clothes, tying their shoes with careful knots. As they left their home, she noticed the energy of the village. Woven through the streets were threads of laughter, greetings exchanged between neighbors, the sacred rhythm of collective anticipation. Arriving at the church, and paused to take it all in. Children raced each other up the steps. Adults gathered in small clusters, their voices mingling like a sweet melody. The doors of the church swung open, and Anne felt a pull within her, an undeniable call to step forward, to dive deep into this moment. Once inside, the church pulsed with life, the flickering candles casting moving shadows that danced along the walls. In the front pew, the pastor greeted them, his smile both serene and powerful. "Today we stand on the brink of something glorious," he proclaimed, raising his hands as if to embrace each soul present as the congregation filled the seats. You could sense hearts beating in unison, prayers intertwining like vines reaching for the heavens. Anne closed her eyes and breathed deeply, filling her lungs with the sweet incense of faith that permeated the room. She could feel warmth flooding through her, calming the waves of uncertainty that had threatened to drown her hope. With every song sung, every prayer lifted, the air thickened with a presence that was unmistakably divine. Anne's children clung to her, eyes wide with wonder as they sang along, their innocent voices carrying unbridled joy. Waves of peace washed over those gathered, as doubts floated away like autumn leaves caught in a gentle breeze. Yet, as the atmosphere thickened with divine expectancy, Anne felt that subtle tension again. It was as if the heavens were holding their breath, waiting for the right moment to pour forth the blessings they so earnestly sought. The pastor paused mid-prayer, sensing a shift in the atmosphere. "Let us linger a moment in silence," he suggested. The room hushed. A sacred stillness enveloped them, felt as if time stood still. In that moment of silence, something extraordinary stirred. Hearts opened, and lives hung in the balance. An unseen line drawn between those filled with faith and the storms of doubt that lurked just beyond. Suddenly, a child shouted, "Look," pointing toward a corner of the church, eyes wide with astonishment. The congregation turned, breath hitching in their throats. A gentle light began to fill that space, shimmering like a softly glowing beacon. "What is it?" whispered Anne, clutching her children close. The anticipation thickened, wrapping around their shoulders like a comforting blanket. In that moment, under the weight of the holy atmosphere, Anne felt a blend of exhilaration and fear, a feeling that something momentous was about to unfold. Would they be ready to receive whatever God had in store? The light continued to grow, and with it, a whisper of divine mystery stirred in the air. They awaited the revelation together. What was about to happen? The hearts of the faithful hung in the balance of God's impending miracle, each pulse echoing with the promise of what could be. The light intensified, spreading warmth throughout the church like a gentle embrace. It flickered softly, causing the shadows to dance even more energetically against the stone walls. And had never seen anything like it. Her heart thrummed with an electric mix of joy and anxiety as she tried to catch her breath. She exchanged glances with the other mothers, their expressions mirroring her own wonder mingled with nervous anticipation. "Look closer," someone urged from the back, eyes wide in disbelief. The children shifted in their seats, captivated. Even the adults, who were usually far too composed, leaned forward, faces painted with the awe of witnessing something sacred. In that atmosphere of stillness, every heartbeat seemed to resound, a sacred rhythm vibrating with expectation. Could it be? Anne whispered, her eyes fixed on the glow. A soft voice echoed in her heart, reassuring and yet profound. For every worry she had brought in, the light seemed to beckon hope, reminding her of the faith she had held onto for so long. The pastor stepped forward, his hands outstretched toward the luminous presence. "Brothers and sisters, this is not just light. This is a visible sign of God's love, His promise." His words pierced through the quiet, igniting a fresh wave of fervor in the congregation, and felt a stirring within her. It was as if the light pulled at the very strings of her heart. She lowered her head, reflecting on her own burdens, the pain, the struggles, the unanswered prayers of years past. But here, in this sacred moment, there was a whisper that maybe today those burdens could transform into something new. Then, As though the moment could hold no more, the light began to pulse rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. The congregation watched with bated breath, eyes glistening, hope swelling in their chests. With every pulse, it was as if God was breathing life into their dreams and aspirations. Suddenly, a voice rang out from among the children. "I feel it. It's so warm." Several others chimed in, "Me too. It's so bright." Laughter sprouted in the corners of the room, a joyous spark piercing through the reverential silence. The pastor smiled widely, his eyes alight with fervor. "This is the light of Christ, the light that breaks through the darkest nights. Can you not feel it? The promise of healing, of hope, of restoration?" As the congregation lifted their voices in song once more, and couldn't he help but let the tears flow freely. They felt like a release, a gesture of surrender. Here was a moment ripe with possibility and the echoes of unfulfilled prayers. The realization washed over her. They were not alone in their yearning, nor in the uncertainty of their lives. Every heart present suspended their worries, embracing the collective presence of God. A wave of unity seemed to envelop them all, binding together in shared dreams and fears. And clutched her children, squeezing them tightly, allowing herself to be swept away in this divine moment. But just as hope flickered brighter, a sudden gust of wind swept through the church, slamming the door closed behind the last lingering straggler. The light flickered violently before stabilizing once more, casting unusual shapes in the sanctuary. The gasps of surprise vibrated through the congregation. It felt like a shift, a challenge on the horizon of their faith. "Do not be afraid," the pastor called out, his voice unwavering. "This moment is about to open the floodgates of heaven. Do you believe?" Anne's heart beat fiercely against her chest. Could they truly receive what was promised? Would this be the moment to witness the miraculous? The lights pulsed, hovering on the edge of their desperate longing. As the air thickened with divine anticipation, she felt a question unresolved deep within her soul. What was to come next? And so the moment hung in the air, waiting for the manifestation of something beautiful, something transformative. What might God do in their midst? As the light enveloped the church, anticipation hung thick like the morning mist. Every heart beat in tandem, igniting a power that radiated outward, and could feel it within her bones, the energy, the divine presence. A moment of reckoning was upon them. "Do you feel that?" A soft voice broke through the reverie. It was Margaret, standing with hands lifted, her face washed in faith. The congregation held their breath, witnessing a tapestry of hope, woven with strands of vulnerability and desire. "I feel it," a child echoed, laughter bursting forth like a joy filled him. The light shimmered brighter, wrapping each soul in warmth. Tears streamed down many faces, washing away the dirt of doubt and despair. Whispers of "Thank you, Lord," fluttered like wings throughout the church, creating an atmosphere charged with heavenly love. Anne's heart surged, and she stepped forward. "This is our call," she proclaimed, the words drawing all eyes to her. "A call to rise, a call to believe. Miracles are birthed in the soil of faith and surrender." The pastor nodded, catching the fervor in her voice. "You are witnessing God's promise, His answer to our cries. Are you prepared to receive?" The room responded with a resounding yes, a tidal wave of collective belief surging toward the altar where the light pulsed with divine intent. From the back, a familiar face emerged, a young man named David, lost in fears of his own. His journey had been rocky, uncertainty his constant companion. Yet now, the pull of light illuminated his path, dispelling the shadows that had lingered. "I want to step into this," he declared, crossing the threshold toward the altar, every step rebirthing his hope. "Yes," and breathed, a melody of joy swelling in her chest. "Let us come forward. Lay down your burdens, your fears, and let us allow God to fill us." With a unified movement, the people surged forward, hands outstretched. They were a chorus of faith, yearning for connection with the divine. The glow intensified, infusing their spirits with strength and clarity. One by one, they laid their hands on one another, praying with fervor that carried their hopes upward, each prayer a fragrant offering wafting to the heavens. with the altar their gathering point, voices intertwined like a vibrant tapestry, swirling around them. Healer, restore us. Mender of hearts, strengthen our community. Transformer of impossibilities, let your light continue to shine. The fervent whispers rose as the light cascaded through the air, drenching every soul in the sanctuary. It was as if they all partook in the tangible presence of God, the atmosphere thickening with expectancy, and could scarcely breathe from the overwhelming sense of peace washing over her as she caught sight of her children, eyes wide with wonder, wrapped in this collective embrace of goddess love. Suddenly, the tension that had filled the church broke like a dam, allowing joy to pour freely. Laughter erupted, followed by hallelujahs that echoed against the stone walls, and felt the joy within her heart swelling as she recognized this true manifestation of community, an embrace of every individual fear and hope, lifted to the divine. Then, like a gentle whisper, that overwhelming peace became a confident assurance. This moment is just the beginning, she realized, as they slowly returned to their pews, still buzzing with electrifying warmth. The pastor raised his hands in blessing. You have stepped into something profound tonight. Let this be only the first wave of goddess goodness washing over Pentridge. With that, something sublime flickered to life in the hearts of those gathered. Forever marked by this experience, they would walk forth with renewed dedication. They understood that faith does not falter because of unseen storms. It flourishes and expands amid trials, illuminating the darkest paths. As families exited the church, the night sky sprinkled with stars felt like heaven's confetti celebrating their newfound bond. Every neighbor exchanged smiles, every hand clasped together signifying unity. It was a moment captured in eternity, a sacred alignment of human hearts aligning with heaven's will. That was just the beginning. A voice cried out from nearby, and turned to exchange knowing glances with Margaret, hearts laughing, blessings overflowing. Indeed, it was. God was leading them into a season of miracles not solely for healings and wonders, but for a revival of their very spirits. And so they stepped deeper into the night, the embers of faith igniting beyond the church walls. With hearts ablaze, they ventured into the world with open hands and promises carved a path before them. Every trial was now a testimony, every fear transformed into focus. What lay ahead for Pentridge was uncertain, yet they walked boldly, emboldened by the light that had intertwined their lives. After all, they were a tapestry of divine love unfurling in ways they could scarcely imagine. Let this story remind you of the charge each of us has to pursue faith, to expect miracles, and to serve one another every step of the way. Now, before we end this beautiful journey together, I need you to act. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second to ensure you're part of our next uplifting story. Leave a like now if this touched your heart. It's crucial for the algorithm to keep spreading these divine messages. Comment below with your reactions and testimonies. The whole community needs to hear how God is moving in your life. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this manifestation. Your support means everything, and only true servants of God understand the significance of sharing faith. Let's keep the flame alive.